congratulations to CAIR Maryland for your first ever inaugural banquet. You can give yourself a round of applause. I feel like I'm in a shadi and no one, someone should get a rishta tonight. And because this is beautiful. Thank you, CAIR Maryland, for inviting me to talk about a wonderful, uplifting topic of Islamophobia. Very heartwarming. You must have heard the recent fears about Sharia. Anyone heard about Sharia taking over America? Yeah. Raise your hand. I'm looking at everyone. Okay, they have no idea what's happening. Okay, but everyone else here does. Okay. So specifically, there's a fear of quote-unquote creeping Sharia, supplanting the United States Constitution with Islamic law, and replacing the stars and stripes with the star and crescent. Anyone heard this? But I always say that Sharia has already infiltrated and conquered America. The signs are everywhere. The Muslim agenda has been a stunning success. We have re-elected a Muslim to the Oval Office, Brother Barack Hussein Obama. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. 17% of registered voters in 2012 believe that President Obama prays to the Kaaba and is anti-American. First term, Obamacare. Second term, Khalifat, inshallah. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. We've also made very strong progress in the culture war. We got the perfect American woman. Not just any woman. 3 years ago, we put a tiara on the head of Miss Rima Fahi, Miss USA from Dearborn, Michigan, which is going to be the seat of the Islamic Caliphate. Miss Rima Fahi is otherwise known as, I quote, the Hezbollah-supporting Shiite Muslim whose bid for the pageant was financed by an Islamic terrorist and immigration fraud perpetrator, end quote, according to Islamophobic Michigan blogger Debbie Schleschel. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. We've also crept Sharia into our supermarkets. We have placed hummus and tahini in every Safeway market in the nation, eaten daily by suburban mothers who also wear keffiyehs as fashion statements. Once you win over suburban moms, you've won over America. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. We've also infiltrated and dominated the most influential voice in America, the television. For those of you who remember last year, we had our own reality TV show called All American Muslim. Anyone? Yes, you guys know? And this year we have the pinnacle of television, The Shahs of Sunset. A brilliant show, brilliant, the height of intellectualism. We are now officially as American as apple pie and Snooki. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Now for those of you who don't know, All American Muslim caused international controversy. A simple reality TV show that ran for 8 episodes and got canceled caused local, national, international controversy. For those of you who don't know anything then, you must be sitting here thinking to yourself, why did a reality TV show cause so much controversy? Was it like the Real Housewives of Al-Qaeda? Was it like Downton Abbottabad Abbey? Did it show, thank you, I'll be here all week, thank you. Did it show terrorists, jihadi training grounds? What was so bad about this show? This show that just featured 5 regular Arab American families in Dearborn, Michigan. Lowe's, anyone know Lowe's? Yeah. Lowe's retail giant said that they had to respond to quote-unquote enormous pressure, and they withdrew ads of the show because of complaints from, quote, a broad spectrum of customers. Specifically, the research shows that they submitted to an email campaign by something called the Florida Family Association, an operation run by one dude named David Canton, the sole employee of Florida Family Association, who has a crummy website and an email list, okay? And David Canton has a rich history of boycotting very controversial shows like, get ready for it, Modern Family, Family Guy, Degrassi, and the worst of the worst, Disney World. But he received his talking points much earlier from members of the Islamophobia network, which I'll talk about in a second, such as blogger Pamela Geller. Who's heard of her? Anyone? Who said that the show All American Muslim was trying to manipulate America into ignoring the threat of jihad. Can't make this up. And also David Horowitz's Front Page magazine, which said that the show was stealth propaganda to promote submission to Islam through the hijab. So for those of you women who wear the hijab, I did not know your hijab had so many powers. I thought that the only power your hijab had was that you can like hold a cell phone in there while driving. But apparently, you guys do that? Is that illegal, by the way? I don't know. But apparently you guys promote submission to Islam through the hijab. We've also, 2 weeks ago, according to the Tennessee State Capitol, well, not the Tennessee State Capitol, but from some senators in Tennessee, we've apparently infiltrated the Tennessee State Capitol by adding, quote, foot washing sinks for our ablutions before our prayers. And our prayers, by the way, are, quote, acts of terrorism, according to North Carolina Representative Presnell. So the stealth edition of foot washing sinks was uncovered by Senator Bill Ketron, who brought it to national attention. Upon investigation, they actually investigated this, Legislative Administration Director Connie Ridley wrote in an email, I'm going to quote, this is her email, I confirmed with the facility administrator for the state capitol complex that the floor-level sink installed in the men's restroom outside the House chamber is for housekeeping use. It is, in layman's terms, a mop sink, end quote. I say mop sink, you say floor-level sink. I say tomato, you say tomato. I say hummus, you say Hamas. But the creme de la creme, the coup de grace, our most brilliant infiltration was of the international boy band sensation One Direction. Ask your daughters. Featuring Zayn Malik, a Muslim, as one of its boy band singers. This is proof of the, quote, boy band jihad. Mega pop star pimping Islam on your daughters, end quote, according to blogger Debbie Schlussel. Obviously, this is ridiculous, and we laugh when we should laugh. However, each one of these examples that I've mentioned has been used by members of the Islamophobia network as proof that Sharia has infiltrated America. In fact, if you remember, nearly every single Republican presidential candidate, except, we should say, Mitt Romney, ran with the anti-Sharia meme to garner votes and money. I'm going to list them. Rick Santorum, Tim Pawlenty, Newt Gingrich, Herman Cain, and of course our favorite, Michelle Bachmann. The manufactured fictitious Sharia threat is about as threatening as the unicorn or Bigfoot threat. However, 31 states have introduced the quote-unquote anti-Sharia bill, specifically up to 78 bills, seeking to restrict religious freedoms for Muslims, and now they've changed the bill to make it an anti-religion and anti-foreign law bill, so it affects not just Muslims, but Jewish Americans and Catholic Americans as well. And many of them have been introduced with mainstream support from, unfortunately, our elected representatives. I use that one topic to illustrate how effective and organized and mobilized the Islamophobia network is, and to quickly illustrate the huge gap between the perception of Muslims and Islam in America versus the reality. Now, the reality of American Muslims is actually quite good. According to the latest studies, and I'm going to read this off for you, American Muslims are moderate. I don't know what that means, but it's good. We'll run with moderate. Uniquely optimistic about America's future. They believe in the American dream. As a group, we're above average economically successful. We renounce extremism and violence against civilians. We help law enforcement. And we're currently the most diverse religious community in America. In fact, American Muslim women are the most educated women of any religious community in America, just behind Jewish American women. Takbir! Takbir. Allahu Akbar. All right, calm down. We're talking about Islam and Muslims. Calm down. Here comes the bad news. Okay. The perception right now is the following. Islam has the lowest favorability rating of any religion in America, lower now than October 2001. Let that sink in. A third of Americans, according to a Time magazine poll, say they don't want a Muslim sitting on the Supreme Court or a Muslim as president. Too late. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Is this being taped? I'm just kidding. And if he is Muslim, he's the worst Muslim of all time. He eats bacon openly. All right? He's not Muslim. But 17% of voters think he's Muslim, and as such, anti-American. The FBI 2 years in a row says there's been a 50% increase in anti-Muslim hate crimes. There's an increase in bullying against Muslim children in schools. There's been widespread surveillance against Muslim communities in New York. And there are currently about 50 nationwide protests against mosques. So, Am I already done? Are you serious? All right, good. I can't even say my name in 10 minutes. You gotta give me at least 5 more minutes. Are you guys doing okay? All right, good. So the underlying core persistent reasons for Islamophobia, according to the research, are twofold. Number one, ignorance. 62% of Americans say they don't know a Muslim, even though we've been here since the beginning of this country. Over a third of the slave trade that was brought here forcibly against their will was Muslim. Yet 62% of Americans say they don't know a Muslim, so ignorance is the root cause. Number two, what they do know about Muslims and Islam, they get from where? The media. Media misperceptions are also the second underlying core reason. So what we did was, with Center for American Progress, a think tank, we did a 6-month investigation to trace the roots of how this all happened in the past 10 years. Why these extremist fringe memes like Sharia is taking over America, President Obama is Muslim, how did they get mainstreamed? And specifically, we released a report called Fear Incorporated, The Roots of the Islamophobia Network in America. You can find it on the Google. It's called Fear Inc. And specifically, we exposed how 7 funders have given $43 million over the past 10 years to a small, interconnected group of individuals, think tanks, grassroots networks, and politicians for mainstreaming fear, bigotry, and hate against Muslims and Islam in America. Before I continue, I'm going to give you our definition of Islamophobia that we've uncovered. Islamophobia, as we witness this today, is the exaggerated fear, hatred, and hostility towards Islam and Muslims that is perpetuated by negative stereotypes resulting in bias, discrimination, and this to me is the worst of the worst, the exclusion and marginalization of Muslims from America's social, political, and civic life. We just heard about that. This has happened before in history. So I'm going to, in 5 minutes, break down our entire report for you. It's going to happen, okay? The report can be broken down this way. The Islamophobia Network functions in 5 categories. First, everything begins with the money. The money trail, $43 million traced to 7 funders. The question you should have is, where does the money go? It goes to the second category, which we call the Islamophobia scholars and policy experts. I use the word scholars lightly. Specifically, I want to just talk about one gentleman. His name is Frank Gaffney. Who here has heard about Frank Gaffney? Frank Gaffney is the head of the Center for Security Policy, a think tank which in 2010 published the report Sharia, A Threat to America, which misdefined Sharia as the preeminent totalitarian threat to America, the legal, military, political doctrine to supplant the Constitution and overtake the United States. Awesome. Even though he makes nearly 6 figures, he has admitted, I do talk a lot about Sharia as a threat, but I don't know much about it. Can't make this up. He also has misdefined taqiyya. Anyone know what taqiyya is? Okay, there's like 2 people who raised their hand. He has said that Muslims do taqiyya, which he incorrectly defined as religiously mandated lying. In fact, like you just saw, Muslims have no idea what taqiyya is. In fact, most Muslims think taqiyya is a new taco released by Taco Bell with extra salsa and guacamole, okay? What taqiyya allows you to do historically, according to some sects, is allows you to hide your faith if you're under threat of being killed. Very, very similar to the Jewish concept, espoused by Maimonides, who said it's perfectly fine. But they say that it's religiously mandated lying, which means it gives the impression that all Muslims, even the good Muslims, are commanded by Islam to lie, which means we're all secretly hiding a nefarious agenda from our neighbors and should be seen as perpetual suspects. He works with David Yerushalmi, an attorney whom the ADL has said has a history of anti-black, anti-Muslim, and anti-immigrant sentiments. Yet that does not stop him from giving testimony to talk about Sharia and appearing on NPR as a Sharia expert. Specifically, he is the author of the current anti-Sharia bill that has passed in 6 states, has entered in 31 states, and has been retitled the American Law for American Courts. That's the second group, the think tanks and the scholars who create these memes. So your question should be, okay, the money pays for these scholars, so what? Who cares? How does it get from a paper in the mouths of influential people? The third group is the grassroots groups. And in particular, I want to talk about Act for America, co-founded by Lebanese Maronite Christian Bridget Gabriel, who has said that every practicing Muslim is a radical Muslim. And another great quote, Arabs and Muslims have no soul. They're dead set on killing and destruction, and in the name of something they call Allah, which is very different from the God we believe. Awesome. Act for America has 573 chapters and over 160,000 members worldwide. They work in tandem with the two gentlemen I mentioned, and they hand deliver the anti-Sharia bill to lawmakers, such as what they did in South Carolina. The fourth is the media megaphone, how these memes go from local to national to international. There is one news channel in particular that has done a great job at this. On the count of three, let's take a guess. 1, 2, 3. Geniuses. Brilliant. Yes, Fox News. Also, we've seen the online media space, the blogosphere, blogs by Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer, online magazines like Front Page Magazines and WorldNet Daily. Also, 20% of Americans get their news from what I call hate radio. Unfortunately, the people who are the most influential are the people, according to our research, who have promoted this. Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Michael Savage, Glenn Beck. And then finally, these words end up in the mouths of politicians. You can trace the exact words from Frank Gaffney's Sharia threat to America in the talking points of Newt Gingrich, Herman Cain, and Rick Santorum. And like I said, for those of you who were paying attention, every single one of those people ran on the anti-Sharia campaign and they got votes and they got a lot of money. So with the 5 minutes I have left, I got 5 minutes, right? 3 minutes? 2 minutes? 1 minute? All right, 1 minute. Awesome. You guys are like, thanks, Wajahat, for coming here and depressing us. Let's go punch ourselves in the face and weep. There's some good news. Have hope. We've written this report for a mainstream wide audience. This is meant to empower communities with knowledge, facts, and information with the hopes of marginalizing these anti-American, divisive, fear-mongering voices. We're still witnessing the scapegoating of American Muslims and the guilt by association. We've seen it in the wake of the Boston tragedy. We've seen, before there were any suspects, CNN said there was a dark-skinned man who was a suspect. Fox contributor Eric Rush made a call to kill all Muslims. And there was a hazing of a 17-year-old Moroccan high school student who happened to be at the event. And also, the New York Post said there was a 21-year-old Saudi as a suspect whose crime was to run away from an explosion. I was asked how I felt Islam was behind the bombing. I felt the same way I did before the suspects were identified, devastated and saddened at the needless loss of life and the chaos that paralyzed the nation for a week. I pray that the capture of the alleged suspects brings much-needed peace and catharsis to the victims, their families, and the entire city of Boston. And as far as Islam goes, I've never met Islam. Islam has never asked me out on a date. If it did, one night it might feed me Hyderabadi biryani, the other night it might feed me fried chicken, all right? Islam doesn't speak, Muslims do. And I'm tired of having our stories told to us by others. And I'm tired, like any other minority group, as feeling like a victim, like we have no power, like the world is against us and we have no resources. We become deflated, defeated, cynical, reactionary, and instead of positive response, we drink chai and yell at Fox News. So let's call on Muslims and our allies, because Islamophobia concerns all our communities. I'm going to say this, Islamophobia is not a Muslim problem, it is an American problem, okay? And it has been this way for other groups. Right now it's our turn. I'm tired of being a sidekick, the Haji Baba, the Tonto, the Cato, and the Sulu. It's time for us to be the protagonists of our own narrative. It's time for us to tell our stories that are by us for everyone. So have hope. I'm going to end on this point. Have hope. I believe that the Islamophobia tide is receding. America eventually finds its moral compass. There is always a reset button. If you just look at the news in the past 2 weeks, you'll see a huge change and shift from what happened 12 years ago. Americans are realizing enough is enough, and we will not divide our country along religious and ethnic lines. This is all a remake. The characters this time happen to be Muslim, but in the past, there were Jews, Catholics, Japanese Americans, gays and lesbians, African Americans, and those deemed radical due to socialist beliefs. However, the ending is always the same for the fearmongers and hate-mongers. They always end up becoming the villains of our children's history books. Thank you so much for your time. Assalamu alaikum, and congratulations for your first banquet.